Pertama sekali terima kasih banyak ya Abang Amer atas jemputan untuk saya sharekan sedikit sebanyak tentang saya punya experience bekerja sebagai animator. Saya punya latar belakang ataupun kerjaya saya bermula daripada 2012 ya. Saya graduate 2012 dari bidang animation arts di sebuah universiti di UK namanya University for Creative Arts. Dan sejurus lepas saya graduate tu saya mulakan journey saya in classical animation ya. So pada mulanya saya punya training menjurus kepada hand-drawn animation ya, classical hand-drawn animation. Pada mulanya masa saya tengah pilih kursus saya lebih kepada illustration, tapi bila universiti punya lecturer tengok saya punya portfolio, dia cakap, oh mungkin kamu saya nampak mungkin ada peluang untuk kamu ceburi bidang animation, so why don't you try. So dari situ I've never looked back lah since then. So karya saya bermula di classical animation. So saya bekerja di satu classical animation, hand-drawn animation studio namanya Lupus Films. Memang dia orang punya IP semua hand-drawn animation yang diadaptasikan daripada children's books. So macam tadilah Snowman and the Snow Dog, We're Going on a Bear Hunt, The Tiger Who Came to Tea. Ini semua nama-nama British children's books yang boleh kita kata klasik ya dalam genre children's writing dan diadaptasikan oleh company ini. So memang agak menarik lah that journey. Tapi kalau kita fast forward kepada saya punya role sekarang sebab saya akan cerita balik the different things that I've learned insyaAllah. So kalau fast forward kepada sekarang, hari ini saya bekerja dalam no longer in children's animation tapi dalam corporate animation. So kita buat explainer videos, saya buat corporate videos, saya also advertising. So it's a different industry altogether, requires different skill sets, requires different ways of thinking, dan as you can expect, learning new software all the time. Sebab every market memerlukan solution yang berbeza. So I'm a senior animator, working currently for a company called QA and diorang ni it's a digital skills company, so they teach other companies technical skills, leadership skills and marketing skills, tapi semua melalui medium animation. So that's where I am now. Bagi saya punya journey ni, saya punya career I'm always jumping from one type of animation industry to another. Mungkin orang boleh kata saya cepat bosan ataupun saya cuma I just from the very beginning I was very keen to try as many new things as possible within the realm of animation. So every part of that journey ada cabaran-cabaran dia yang berbeza. Misal kata waktu saya di classical animation ya, kita dalam satu company ni di mana saya bermula sebagai runner, lepas tu saya naik jadi matte artist. Matte artist ni kerja kita ya, macam sekarang compositing semua After Effects dan Nuke dan sebagainya. Tapi sebelum ni in the hand-drawn world, bila kita dah ada rough animation, lepas tu ada clean up animation, kita the matte line artist ni kerja dia kena trace. Kita letak animation punya paper tu, and then kita tekap lah, and then kita kena tekap the whole outline without any mistakes, and it has to be millimeter perfect sebab nanti orang akan scan tu, and then that will become the matte untuk buat shadow, buat blur effects, untuk buat glow effects, semua melalui that tracing. Sebab nanti dia orang akan fill it with a fill color, and then dari situ dia orang akan Diorang akan do all the post processing lah, all the VFX, all the shadow, all the lighting, pasal semua akan melalui that process. So I remember my first day bila starting as in that role, you actually had the what do you call the VFX director sat behind me tau. Tengok sambil saya tengah tekap this very intricate drawing of I remember it was the character playing with the snow dog. So kita ni tengah tengah baru nak start, and then you've got the supervisor just looking over your shoulder. Yeah, so that was an interesting challenge, and that gave me an insight lah into the precision. Yeah, diorang ni memang in any department that they work in, daripada rough animation to clean up to filling in, ada department yang colouring in dan sebagainya. Everything is so precise to the millimeter. So bagi saya, alhamdulillah, sebab saya memang dalam universiti saya belajar drone animation. But for some people who came into the studio with more digital skills, it was a huge challenge for them, because now they're actually having to learn to be very precise with the hand-eye coordination dan sebagainya. Yeah. So dari situ saya dipromotkan jadi clean up artist. So kerja kita dapat rough animation, dan kita akan not rough animation, in between. So kira complete animation with all the keyframes, dan kerja kita untuk bersihkan kan. Kadang-kadang tu ada setengah-tengah drawing tu yang agak rough, kita kena lukis balik supaya dia punya line tu very clear dan sebagainya. So itu ada cabaran dia tersendiri, sebab sometimes you have to draw entire sequences from scratch. Kadang-kadang setengah animator ni dia orang bagi kepada kita dia orang punya animation, dan it's very very rough. Kadang-kadang line tu dah comot dan sebagainya. So we have to reinterpret what they were trying to draw. So for me, the biggest challenge, kalau saya nak summarizekan, memang was working for a high budget hand-drawn TV animation, where you are required to be very very precise, and you're required to work to a very high standard lah. Betul, memang puas hati, because kita ni baru mula kan. Lepas tu we're surrounded by, they were recruiting senior animators dari waktu tu, dari the States, daripada Canada. Waktu tu some of the senior animators had worked for Disney, had worked for DreamWorks, so these are our heroes kan. So kita tak nak, for me ada animation heroes, so kita tak nak hampakan dia. So when I got and every week we would go to the boardroom to watch the latest play blast kan, the latest rushes. So memang seronok bila animation. My supervisor cakap, oh itu Farhan yang buat sequence ni. So all the senior animators would pat you on the back. That was nice. I remember in particular a few of the sequences. Nanti saya akan try and compile them, and then saya akan share as a Google Drive, so that Amer and the students can watch lah. Yeah. There's a scene where he's shaking the snow globe, and then there's another scene where the main character ends up having a skiing race with all these snow people, snowmen and snowwomen. So ada satu scene mana one of the snowmen crashes into the screen, and then there's a huge explosion of snow. So I got even though I got like the small sequences, they were very difficult, and each sequence has its own. Setengah sequence tu very subtle, more emotional beats. Setengah sequence tu very action oriented, so a lot of explosion and sebagainya. So I really relish those chances where you got to flex your animation muscle even as a new graduate pada waktu itu. The director is the captain of the ship kan, and it's crucial for them to communicate their vision effectively, so that the crew can really can can really interpret that vision in the most truthful way possible lah kan. Sebab kita nak sampaikan kita punya vision ni kepada kru kita yang mungkin dari background yang berbeza, dan dia orang akan interpret dengan cara dia orang sendiri. When I was working at Lupus on the Snowman and the Snow Dog and the Bear Hunt, I was working under this director, nama dia Robin Shaw, and he was very hands-on. Dia memang dah berpuluh tahun experience working sebagai animator, lepas tu animation director, lepas tu dinaikkan sebagai director. So he was one of the most excellent directors I've worked with. Kadang-kadang panas baran, kadang-kadang cepat marah dan sebagainya. Highly critical of everybody's work, as they should be. But what was great about him, dia ambil masa tau. Dia akan ambil masa untuk terangkan visi dia. He was an excellent communicator. Dia akan duduk dengan you and then dia akan tunjuk cara yang dia nak kita buat sesuatu perkara. Misal kata when my task was animating a particular sequence, hand-drawn sequence, dia akan duduk dan dia akan buat 1-2 frame kan, and then it's a and bukan semua director boleh buat perkara macam tu. Setengah director hanya akan beritahu visi mereka, tapi someone like the director I was working with, Robin ni, dia akan duduk dan dia akan actually show you practically how to do it kan. But beyond that, I think the most important skill, beyond sitting down and showing you how it's done, is to have excellent communication kan. And I saw it through him and through many other directors I work with. They have the patience and they have the adaptation skills untuk communicate with very different people, from the sound design team to the animation team to the compositing team, to the script, the writing team, and without a doubt, it goes without saying, they have to have a complete understanding of the entire production pipeline. That will, because that's they're responsible from start to finish. So for me, beyond anything else, is once you have your vision and once you have a complete understanding of what you're trying to do, is to be a patient communicator. Because kerja director ni, I remember Robin sendiri, this director I work with, dia sendiri cakap, actually kerja director ni cakap je, berbual je dengan orang. Hari-hari kerja kita cakap je. Sampai setengah hari tu dia cakap dia punya jaw tu dah sakit dah sebab kerja dia cakap dengan orang. And actually, that's absolutely 100% true, because if you're not an efficient communicator, how can you expect to get your message across? I think for just to reaffirm again, when it comes to hand-drawn animation, you have a lot more processes and you have a lot more checkpoints untuk pastikan everything is to the highest quality, dan pada masa sama tak ada perbezaan antara one animator to the next. Sebab that when we were working at Lupus on the Snowman and the Snow Dog, we had, kalau tak silap saya, around 20 senior animators and another 20 assistant animators, and then a team of about 10 cleanup artists, kalau tak silap saya. So ramai, dan they all have to end up producing the same thickness of line, the same quality of pencil stroke. The characters have to be proportionate. We can't go from one scene to another where they change in size dan sebagainya. And those all require a lot of processes and a lot of guidelines. So misal kata, some animators will be brought in, and for 1 month, all they will do is just practice drawing the characters that they're in charge of. that is literally all they will do. We will, before they even get their first animation sequence to rough out. Yeah. So that training is important. That time to settle in is important. There's also a lot of paperwork that happens behind the scenes from the production team, what we call manual lah, animation manual. So and every department akan ada manual dia. If you're in the animation, if you're in the character animation department, you will have an entire tome, tebal dia punya buku, just about how to draw each animation, each character, what kind of pencil to use, yeah, what kind of thickness of line to use, the shape language, sama ada character tu more rounded ataupun character tu has more sharper angles, a whole expression sheet of the various types of expressions, a pose sheet, an expression sheet, yeah. And then for the people in the coloring department, pages and pages of color sheets, what specific pencils to use, yeah, specific combinations of colors if you're overlaying multiple colors on top of each other. So memang I have to give credit to the production team sebab dia orang susun all these manual. Kita duduk, kita dah baca manual tu, kita tahu lengkap. Okay, I know what I need to do A to Z. Macam resepi memasak. Garam banyak ni, gula banyak ni, semua, everything was quantified. So I think that was crucial. And then lastly, I remember there was this girl nama dia Claire. Tugas dia is bila rough animation in between dengan clean up dah habis, dah scan, dan coloring team pun dah apply dia punya colours onto the black and white drawing. So you have a complete, boleh kata complete character animation. Claire ni sebagai tugas sebagai animation checker, dia akan tengok satu frame ke satu frame. Yeah, you've got half an hour of film, and dia akan check, and in every second there's 25 frames. Dia akan check one frame to the next. Pakai keyboard tu, next, and look for any mistakes. So itu je kerja dia, animation checking. Dia akan report balik lah. Oh, yang ni colour dia berubah daripada frame 24 to frame 25. Topi dia dari merah tiba-tiba jadi biru. Yeah, and it's completely different. Kalau sekarang, if you're talking about animation nowadays, all of that is already automated through the software, kan? Sebab misal kata lepas tu kita, bila saya kerja on another film, we've at that point decided to transition from hand drawn to digital using stylus and tablet on a software called TV Paint. So TV Paint tu it automated a lot of those strict controls that we had before lah. Dia dah ada library of palettes, dia ada library of brushes, dia ada its own built-in quality control. So kalau you tekan lebih sangat, dia akan kecilkan line. And so a lot of those processes that were had to be manually done in Snowman and the Snow Dog were no longer needed, or were automated in the following projects. Yes, alhamdulillah. I have this theory actually. The British are very nostalgic people. They like to preserve things, kan? They like to preserve things of that they think have value. So, especially for Lupus films ni, they really cherish hand-drawn animation. So, but not to say that they haven't adapted. So now their modus operandi is to always start with hand-drawn animation and then introduce digital processes. So they're currently working on this one animation called Kensuke's Kingdom, again adapted from a book. Then the rough animation will still be hand-drawn. The backgrounds will still be hand-drawn. So you can imagine backgrounds painted in watercolor ataupun in gouache dan sebagainya by very, very talented artists. But they will do the VFX and the compositing semua digitally lah. Yeah. So there's rather than in the past from A to Z, 70% was manual. Sekarang a lot of you could say 30 to 40% of it is still hand drawn, and then 60% would be completely digital process. Yeah. That did happen. I remember we sat down to watch our rushes, and there was a scene that everybody missed. There was a big mistake on the scene that everybody missed, yeah, and it was the hat. The character was wearing like a snow hat, and then there's like a yang bulat tu kat atas tu kan. And for a sequence of about 10 seconds, that bob at the top of the snow hat of this boy was a completely different color. So it became quite a huge scene lah in the boardroom. Like all the animation directors were the color department people were pointing each other. Kenapa kau buat color ni? But alhamdulillah, that's where digital comes in. So you had our VFX team, and because if you remember, I mentioned there was a matte department yang kerja dia orang trace every shape. So using that matte, kita boleh just select that shape over whatever 10 seconds of mistake, dan kita in After Effects kita just tukar dia punya fill color. Yeah, so that's where again digital processes is very helpful in order to correct a lot of these mistakes. So you won't have to mula balik daripada go back to the coloring department and then erase and then fill in balik. It would just be corrected by the compositing department lah. I can only speak on a very little engagement I've had. Yeah, tapi most recently, the last couple of years, I've been meeting animation studios in Malaysia, seperti Inspidia dan Animasia, yeah, just to understand better. Even Didi, we managed to visit the studio behind Didi and Friends, just to understand their processes a little bit better. And actually tak banyak beza daripada processes. Yeah, they can use a lot of the same software. They will use a lot of the same generally the same process. The pipeline will still be the same in terms of you're going from you will still have an in between your keyframe and then your in between, and then you go to your coloring department and then VFX. The general processes are still the same. Cuma I think based on my experience, and I think this is changing very fast. Yeah, because I think you can see from the latest animations, there's a lot of innovation taking place. I think in the UK, they like to try and automate things without losing out on the human element. So misal kata in Lupus, they had a huge emphasis on drawing from life. So there will be trips to the zoo, then trips to outdoor trips to public spaces where the animators will get together and draw from life. And so yes, but there's a lot of innovation taking place. There's a lot of new techniques and new processes being implemented. But the fundamental skill, the foundational skill of good life drawing, good drawing from nature is memang ditekankan lah. Yeah, because there's AI sekarang, there's ChatGPT, there's stable diffusion dan sebagainya, and people are saying, oh, ini semua akan make us redundant dan kita akan tak ada kerja, hilang kerja. As long as we have the foundational skills of good drawing, and I've seen this here, that will not be an issue. Because sekarang kita tengok AI tangan dia masih, they still have problems with interpreting hands, for example, and that's just a few of the problems. So yeah, I think uh, there's that middle ground between innovation dengan respect for foundational knowledge. Yeah. It happens more often in smaller studios than in large studios where most of the time you'll be just within one department for a particular project. But for example, on the snowman, I moved from runner, so kerja buat kopi, and then kerja scan people's animation. You'd have 1,000 pieces of paper, and then you have to scan by hand under a rostrum camera. Waktu tu dia orang tak pakai feeder. So imagine one by one. So from there I become the matte animator yang kerja tekap ni, and then from there I became a cleanup artist, and then from there they actually gave me a few animation sequences to in between. So absolutely, I think what's important, is if you know that you have various abilities to showcase, then don't be afraid to showcase them. Okay? I had colleagues who would go to the animation director and say, look, this is what I made in uni. This is a sample of all my work. They were already working there as a runner, but they really wanted to show that, look, I can have a hand in this animation. So even if you give me a short 5-second sequence, let me have a go. So yes, you do change roles, and I hear of people going from animator to compositor. Yeah. But it's all about showcasing to the person in charge that you do have the aptitude and you do have the skills to carry out these different roles lah. Yeah, and a lot of the time, if you have a good trusting director, they will let you change roles and they will let you have a hand in a lot of things. Misal kata saya daripada snowman, saya projek seterusnya adalah we're going on a bear hunt. Dari situ saya transition, director panggil saya cakap, you have good knowledge of animation, but you also have the technical skill set to work in After Effects, because dalam di uni our main software was After Effects. Cakap, you interested that nak jadi compositor in our compositing team? So yeah, I was taken from the animation department masuk compositing team. A completely different set of tasks, kan? Kerja kita is ambil all the different layers of animation, of color, of VFX, of background, and kerja kita to put all that together, apply the lighting, the shadow passes, and to make all those different parts look like one seamless whole. So a great experience for me. But again, like for people wanting to try their hand at different things, all it takes is just the courage to showcase that you're able to learn very quickly and you're able to adapt. You know, I've been struggling with that question for the longest time. I would say, Amer, the answer is not technical skill. The answer is actually soft skills. The answer is the answer is to a set of soft skills that will allow you to learn, to maximize your learning. Yeah. So that means respect for people who know more than you. Yeah. Patience, but also again at the same time really effective communication. I think as creatives, a lot of us can agree that sometimes kita ni quite insular, quite at least for me anyway, there's a tendency kita ni introverted. We like to occupy our own personal space, tak nak orang kacau, kan? And it can be quite a lonely crowd. But you really have to if you want to maximize your learning and upgrade your skills, you have to be inquisitive. You kena banyak bertanya soalan. You jangan segan to approach your seniors in the company for advice. Yeah, and just have a good attitude, and that will always be superior to having technical skills, because technical skills ni semua boleh belajar, kan? Tapi if you have the respect, the humility, and the inquisitiveness, the curiosity untuk bertanya, there will always be good people in the company that will see that, and that will take you by the hand and teach you the skills that you need. Exactly, and I think it's all the more important for students in this current day and age to understand, yeah, as artificial intelligence tries to take over and becomes a part of our lives. All the more important to understand the human aspect of what we do. We're not just cogs in a wheel. We're not machines. We are human beings. People who really pay attention to those soft skills, like Amer mentioned, you will stand out from the crowd, because you can't automate those things. Yeah, you can't automate inquisitiveness, friendliness, being able to communicate effectively, and being able to work in a team. Those are the qualities that will now, I think, be more important than ever. Oh yeah, certainly. I know, certainly banyak. At least here in the UK and in the West, every company will use a specific set of software. So other than Adobe Animate, they will use. I know a company that still uses Flash, surprisingly, walaupun benda tu dah extinct. And then you have other companies that use some software that might be more prevalent here in the West than in the East. Cell Action, TV Paint, Toon Boom, Harmony. Ini if we're talking 2D animation, yeah. Apa lagi? And just last week, my manager introduced us to a software that just came out earlier this year. It's supposed to be a contender to fight against After Effects. So I can't remember the name of it. Tak ingat. But yeah, there's a whole myriad, there's a whole set of softwares out there that do pretty much almost the same thing. In television series work, because of the high output, the more common ones are Cell Action and Toon Boom Harmony. Sebab it's easy to rig the characters. Yeah, there's a lot of automations there. There's a lot of templated rig, so you dah create the skeleton and you cuma tukar dia punya asset sahaja, so you don't have to redesign the rig altogether. So those kind of selection dengan Harmony are very much the industry standard here for TV animation, series animation. But if you're looking at hand-drawn animation, the prevalent one is TV Paint. TV Paint ni memang very powerful when it comes to their punya different brush strokes, different textures. So the output is very much as if you were painting something hand-drawn. I think sometimes we don't even know what daylight is, hand charging, yeah. But in all seriousness, betul, when I started at Lupus, especially towards the final hurdle, and this is common in all studios, the final quarter before the premiere. For example, in Snowman and the Snow, the premiere night was very clear. It was Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve at, I think it was 6 p.m. ke 7 p.m. macam tu. Budak-budak the kids would be in their pajamas in front of the TV waiting for it to play. So, but obviously we would have to deliver it to Channel 4 at that time, a month before premiere. And that was the target. By the 20th of November tu dah kena, the master copy dah kena ada dekat in Channel 4 punya hands. You can imagine the last few months tu memanglah non-stop. They'd give us allowance untuk makan pizza almost every night. So diet memang out the window. Diet memang habis. But it was a lot of fun because there's a spirit of camaraderie kan. For example, I was at that time in the in between punya team, and we got very close lah sebab one of us would always make a cup of tea for the rest, and we'd take turns, and sometimes some of us would even cook like instant noodles or something. So there's a great camaraderie, there's a great sense of everybody's in it together, struggling together, and that's really really priceless, because it means that always if you work in a family setting, you're going to create better work. I mean, so many. I grew up on animation, on anime. So I grew up on Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki, and I grew up on Mamoru Hosoda and the guy who did Grave of the Fireflies and Princess Kaguya. So there's so many good 2D animation out there. Miyazaki, just because he's such a craftsman and he's such a perfectionist when it comes to animation, he's always a great director to watch. But there's a whole bunch of 2D animation out there in the West that you could call them indie or underground, but they're no less valuable for the animator to learn from. You've got here Jans Svankmajer, who's like a very surreal stop motion artist working with clay, and a lot of his animation actually functions sebagai social commentary of the time that he was living in. And at that time dia dijajah dengan komunis. He's from Czech Republic, so a lot of his stop motion animation about hunger, about power, and there's one where like there's these two clay heads and one is eating the other. Very, very surreal and almost nightmarish, but very powerful. Not just in terms of message, but in terms of technical ability. Just like a superb, one of the best stop motion animators I've seen. And there's many. There's a whole school of surrealist animators that were working in the 70s, 80s that really informed what we know as Disney today. So and that's just in the West. In the East, again, like I said, there's a whole history of anime that if you had the time you should really delve into and try to watch. So I would say I would recommend not just watching what's currently out there, but really, if you're into anime, look at the history of anime, look at the earliest forms of anime, and then you can and then you can really understand the techniques that went into what we know now as anime. Sebab always the earliest forms of something will teach you more sometimes than the current forms of something. If I'm not mistaken, Lo Yuan, I think you're referring to when they have their rough animation ataupun their line animation and before it goes to color. If I'm not mistaken, this would correspond to the different colors would correspond to misal kata shadow, yeah, contact shadow on the on the character. They would also maybe correspond to VFX. Yeah, so if there's fire or water VFX, they would then be colored in a different line. So this is just so that when you're playing the line test, people know to separate the main character from the shadow and all the other elements in the screen. And the same thing is done in the West as well, in the UK. For example, on the snowman and the snow dog, what we would do is, if there were shadow effects that needed to be done, rather than using a very thin pencil line, we'd use a very, very thick, heavy line. So people would know it won't be a different color, but just the thickness of the line would show you the difference between the character layer and the shadow layer. Yeah. But I think the Japanese, they're very, very detailed when it comes to their line test. I mean, if you look at some of the sakugas or the animatics that the animation studios produce, they are overwhelmingly good. You'd have sometimes 5-6 colors. You know, you have the contact shadow, you have you'd have the light, the rim light, itu color lain, contact shadow color lain, VFX berpuluh-puluh VFX, explosion semua color lain. Kalau ada explosion tu, the shadow of the light and the shadow of the explosion pun color lain. So they are definitely masters at the sakuga or the animatic. And sometimes just watching the animatic without watching the final animation it's like watching its own form of art, you know? Yeah, memang very, very they're very, very skilled, the Japanese. I have a few, but I admire everyone from mangakas to animation directors to I have a lot of admiration for painters. So if you're talking animators specifically, currently I'm very, very much into Michael Dudok de Wit nama dia. Michael Dudok de Wit ni dia Belgian kalau tak silap saya. He did a lot of short animations. One of them is called The Monk and the Fish. Yeah, The Monk and the Fish ni it was a short film that garnered a lot of animation awards. But and then another film that he did was it's called Father and Daughter, about the separation between a father and his daughter. Very poetic. I love him because a lot of his animation tak ada dialogue. Yeah, a lot of animation dia tak ada dialogue. A lot of animation dia just reliant on music. So the animation is very musical, is very poetic, and he likes a lot of wide shots. You were talking about super wide panoramic shots, where the character is very small in frame. So he goes against the grain compared to a lot of animators who always want to close in. The camera want to be close in on the action to showcase their acting skills and sebagainya. But he goes against the grain. He goes very wide, and for him, it's all about the poetic quality of that moment. Where, for example, a father is cycling with his daughter behind him across like across a very rural green landscape, and then coupled with the use of the music, it creates a very poetic moment and a very nostalgic moment. So compared to a lot of the action-heavy animation we see nowadays, is a lot more toned down. But I think if you want to talk about animation as poetry, that's another conversation for another day, because we're dealing with movement and we're dealing with a movement, shape, line, and music. And at the end of the day, our craft is a very rhythmic craft. Okay? So there's a lot of experimentation, and there's a lot of interpretation there as well. So for me, Michael Dudok de Wit, if you have the chance, and I will share with Abang Amer, inshallah, some of his films, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I think definitely that there's no denying the fact that it's gonna play a bigger and bigger role in our industry, and there's no denying that. We are already looking at how to introduce AI into idea generation, which is exactly what Amer you were mentioning. Per color scripting, generating mood boards dan sebagainya. Certainly, its uses will be much more significant than that. Like you said, we're already talking about how we can use AI tools in the future to rig entire characters, rig and animate entire characters. So again, there's no denying the fact that it's playing a role. Whether, and it's going to change the landscape of the industry, no doubt about it. So a lot of the idea generation work, I think, will be completely just given to AI. But whether AI can create entire animations is yet to be seen, because as we all know, there's a lot of moving parts to put the sound and the image and all the various layers together. But as human beings, we're very good at knowing when something is machine generated and when something is human generated. And what I mean is, when you watch a film that moves you, that quality of being moved is an emotional quality, kan? And that's not just about technical ability. That's not just about how good something looks. It's about a combination of timing, what's shown on screen, obviously, but also the rhythm, the pacing, the music, and also what we're very good at. I think we're pretty good as human beings to see when something is copied from something else. Yeah. So I think that's the issue of AI. The challenges for AI is how to make meaningful and moving pieces of work, and at the same time how to show some form of originality. Because we see now people actually, I saw yesterday someone actually did a whole trailer for the Lord of the Rings if it was done by Wes Anderson. Well, nampak very Wes Anderson lah, with all the color palettes and the shot composition, and technically it looked amazing. But I think the challenge for AI is, if you want to go beyond idea generation and create something that's I guess, for lack of a better word, is poetic and moves the heart, as a lot of good art does. How can we program AI to be able to do that? Is the question mark. And I think again, everything about AI has to do with mining existing work. There's a technical question, but there's also like ethical questions that we as artists should ask them. Do we give AI the right to mine the work of other artists? I'm a big believer that we're gonna see a resurgence of handcrafted work, especially in animation. I think as a lot of these things, it goes in cycles. So you move towards 3D and hyperrealism and VR dan sebagainya. I think there will be a resurgence of the more handcrafted things like 2D like hand-drawn animation, because like you said, I think there will be a desire for imperfection